reports of local blood and guts.
What happened was true. The most bizarre and brutal series of crimes
This video contains content that is very real and extremely disturbing. The topic centers around a compilation of gore focused solely on the death and abuse of children, its origins, creators, and contents. This video is meant to educate and explain in depth and to dull the curiosity this mixtape brings. Do not search for this compilation. You have been warned. Back in early 2021, and moving into the summer months of the year, I began doing more review and reaction style videos relating to gore, and my channel was blowing up with crazy videos. This was convenient for me in a way. Admittingly, the videos around the time were kind of lazy, and more just raw review videos of gore with a bit of the backstory tied in. However, given my life situation, I was moving and getting those kind of things in a row with my family. It worked out really well. People really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. Everyone did, except for the tear-soaked Reddit boards, of course. I typically covered individual gore videos and true crime at this time. However, I began dabbling into mixtapes as well. A gore mixtape is a popular term for a compilation of gore clips. Often these sorts of videos are titled, themed, and have cover art as well. The fascination of production with these films dates back to the 1960s and 70s, with Mondo films like the Mondo Kane series, for example. And often would be set up in a mockumentary style, sometimes with full-on real gore the whole way, or other times, like in cases like the wildly popular Faces of Death franchise, it would pepper in real incidents with a lot of dramatizations. Also with no short of shock clips unrelated to death as well. These compilations only grew with intensity and demand, and morbid requests. And with the access to the internet, things really just escalated. And I cannot say for certain, but I believe the Ogreish collection may very well be one of the first series of mixtapes to feature content solely focusing on internet gore. A fun tidbit of information that we won't dive too deep into for narrative's sake. But LiveLeak and Ogreish are actually split from the same people. It's more or less an office split that formed the two companies. But with the demand for more extreme content, and the evolution of cameras and the ever-growing chaos in our world, there have been far worse videos uploaded online in just the past 6 years alone, not to mention the mixtapes people are creating with them. And the interconnected underground of these many groups who enjoy the exploitation content and gore. With that comes promotion, competition, and ego. Reddit in particular, while useful at times, is a generic cesspool of degenerates who poise themselves as a guiding compass of morality. But there is an oversaturation of mixtapes from there alone, and their fandom, that many copycats have been cycled around well-known compilations such as MD Pope, Snuff R73, and even Amber Alert, and in their inability to get certain mixtapes, and in their copycatting, they like to spread rape and even CSEM content in these tapes, just for the sake of one-upping each other. Not to mention all of the lies and urban legends created, including the extremely racist One Guy, Five Shotguns myth created by a well-known child predator who is still active on multiple gore and iceberg subreddits, and the widely spread myth of an extended cut of Snuff R73, the myth fabricated to bring popularity to the r/Mondogore subreddit, and its illegal untaxed sales of these mixtapes and other gore content for $1 a piece on a Mega Drive. There's even people on there posing themselves as actual DVD vendors where they just burn the gore onto a CD and Sharpie over it. and sell it to you for a couple $100s or so. But there are a few mixtapes that these people just can't seem to find. But like all other child material, they obsess over and attempt to demonize me for bringing it to light. Some of these include Suffer Little Children, and of course, Amber Alert. But back in August of 2021, I knocked a few projects out of the way, and many of you may remember me announcing that I received 2 Darkweb mixtapes, and I was going to review them blind, only being told that they were much more intense than the average mixtape, and that they contained no illegal content. So where did these mixtapes originate? The interesting part is, no one supposedly knows. Or if the people do know, they aren't talking about it. I do have some inkling as to who made it and where it originated, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But when I originally discussed the nature of these mixtapes, these compilations, I mentioned terms like trade only back then. I wanted to go over that once more because I feel clarification is important. The term is in reference to the gore first that was brought to my attention when I covered what most people agree that is some of the worst animal abuse videos out there, Old Number 7 and YLYM. Those videos, before they were leaked out, were allegedly considered trade only, meaning unless that you traded equatable content like unreleased content, self-produced content, etc., you typically could not get your hands on those vile videos. I was also told Amber Alert and Suffer Little Children were no different. However, there's no real way to confirm any of this. One more thing that needs to be discussed as well before we go further is the legality of gore. Regardless of your moral compass, in most countries, especially the United States, gore videos are 100% legal. In fact, most graphic, exploitative, and terrifying media is in fact legal. This includes animal abuse, murder, accidents, sexual assault, necrophilia, and child abuse. The only time it becomes illegal is if the child is sexualized, then it is considered CSEM or CSAM. So why is this the case? This is because it falls under freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Like it or not, gore videos are often used in news media, and as news media, conservative societies have conditioned people to be protective of sex and nudity, but there is no condition to the real violence of our world. This is the reality of our world. The short and bitter truth is, it's no different than a horror movie, except what you're watching is very real. But then it begs the question of morality. To be honest, it doesn't typically matter. For myself and others like me, who do no different than the news, and really all claims of profit are just salt-filled tears of the offended. Because if it bleeds, it leads, and that is why violence is at the forefront of all media. Everyone has an interest in violence. Everyone wants to see, everyone's curious. Regardless if you like the delivery or not, or if you like the content, you can turn your eyes, you can close your eyes, you can look away, you can try to pray it away. But me and others like me aren't going anywhere, nor is the content we cover. Because it's real, and this is human nature. On the other side of things, however, we know that it's simply impossible for all of this content to be only consumed by people with neutral good intention, correct? It's really all up for assumption and speculation, truthfully, and it's kind of irrelevant because gore isn't going anywhere, but it does raise some questions for certain content. And with this in mind, or rather the lack of restrictions on what kind of videos can be used, it's shown time and time again that people will continue to seek out the most horrific happenings in our world. But there's a limit, right? We live in what most of you view as hell. You cling to your comforts, and like I said, you turn a blind eye. But this is the real world we live in. It's full of things you call demons, and they're all around you. For this video, I will solely focus on Amber Alert, but I will discuss its sister mixtapes where necessary. Suffer Being Children being the most mild of the related compilations and the most known. While I do not feel it compares to Amber Alert as far as intensity and clip delivery goes, the mixtape still is around the same length and focuses solely on the death of children. However, the clips are far more tame by comparison and actually include a lot of screenshots versus video material, and it drowns most of the mixtape out with full-length songs that make it almost laughable. For instance, Over the Rainbow plays in full, as well as Creep by Radiohead, and to me that dulls the effect and distracts from the terror on screen, almost as if it was trying to be Amber Alert but pointing out self-reflections of disgust, but purely for what the creator deemed as entertainment and drama purposes. But Amber Alert's different. To me, it's the worst I've seen. My original video cut details and the clip reactions around the third clip, as I deemed it far too extreme to do a reaction to on YouTube, or even Patreon. One of the first clips seemed to be a young girl who was filmed as she convulses, and I thought she was having a seizure as onlookers looked at her dying. The reality is actually far worse. It seems even though I cover some of the darkest content, my mind passively tries to put more of an optimistic perspective even on terrible things. The clip is from 2015 and takes place in the state of Maranhão, Brazil. It showed an extremely petite girl, eyes wide, shallow breath, convulsing on the ground as onlookers watched. Her name was Mesa. She was 6 years old. She was playing alone near her front door when she was abducted by 26-year-old Jose Ribamar. Jose told police he was drinking with a group of friends, and that he left the gathering complaining of multiple toothaches. He then found 6-year-old Mesa and drug her to the nearby bushes. He then beat, choked, and raped her throughout the night so violently she went into shock. The video clip is of this child after kids found her near death. Jose was arrested shortly after, due to his suspected involvement with other rapes in the area. When arrested, he described what he had done with no remorse, in a cold demeanor, expressing he is only afraid of what other prisoners will do to him when they find out what he's done. The girl's cause of death was sexual violence. She was quite literally raped to death, and found by a few kids who were searching for cashews in the thickets. This clip was one of the first shown in Amber Alert, along with the infamous 911 call of another alleged 6-year-old. The audio detailed a call between a new operator at the emergency services in El Salvador and the little girl trying to call for help for her mother, who was being killed while she was on the phone with the 911 operator. The operator was new to her job, and what makes this worse is it's actually an unsolved crime. I covered this recently, and just due to its extreme nature and the fact that there's so much backstory to it, just nobody's really talked about it. It should come as no surprise that it made it into Amber Alert because it's extremely disturbing, and to me it's one of the worst audio files I've ever heard. Amber Alert showed no mercy in regards to its attempts to shock and awe. Psychologically, it is the most taxing mixtape I have ever seen or heard of, focusing more on abuse than death. And I cannot say if that was its intentions or not, but it does have the effect. Whether it was a mindless shock video or a cold and calculated edit, I mean, I suppose it's irrelevant, but it's something I think about often and makes me wonder. Other clips featured in the mixtape are no less disturbing. One clip where another young girl, who appeared to be in her teens, was writhing in a dirty mattress in some sort of back alley corner, soaked in blood, beaten. Much like the young girl, many onlookers chatter amongst themselves and just stand there. At one point, the camera actually kind of just like pans over and shows how many people are actually watching, and it's a lot. It's a lot of people that are there. They just stand there and watch her die. The backstory of this one fits the depressing bill, of course, as well. The victim was a 19-year-old college student, and the event took place in a semi-finished brick house on the outskirts of Phnom Penh in Cambodia. The girl was assaulted by an unknown man or men. and beat and raped until her body couldn't take it anymore. When she was found on May 10th of 2016, and that is when the video was recorded and uploaded to various gore sites at the time, people just stood there with no thought to help the young woman. Instead, they left her struggling to breathe and in pain until she passed away. A theme of rape begins to form, and again, I can't confirm if that was intentional, as there really isn't any way to prove if the creator or creators even knew the backstories of these clips when they used them. But another clip appeared to be in the angle of a hidden camera and showed a woman in a purple long sleeve beating a toddler. This incident was covered extensively in its country of origin, Turkey. The woman would pick the child up and throw him and beat him viciously. It's extremely difficult to watch, and I really did not want to look at this again. I had a difficult time as well translating this from Turkish, so it's difficult to summarize the background of the incident, but from what I can gather, it seems the abuser was the stepmother of the biological mother of the children in the videos. The mother was given custody of the children from the father when he allegedly determined that she was wealthy enough to give them a better life than he could. However, when the mother said she was just going to remarry, he voiced his concerns about the stepmother looking after them and wanted the children back. Other clips in the video are considered, for a lack of a better term, famous, including where I ended the reaction segment of my original video. I didn't describe it then, because at the time I was so shocked at what I was seeing, I just didn't know what I could talk about with YouTube and what I couldn't talk about, basically, and basically had to process everything I saw. The clip was of a child being slapped in the face repeatedly until its nose broke. The child was an infant. There was probably under a year old, if I had to estimate, going off memory. To clarify as well, another segment of the video, the original video I discussed, child crushing being in Amber Alert, and there is a difference between crushing and trampling, but I used them interchangeably, as many people do, to my knowledge at least. But it was a mistake on my end, because specifically if it were crush, that would mean broken bones and death. That was actually not in Amber Alert. Trampling, however, is basically the baby steps to this sort of thing. Imagine someone walking on your back, but obviously with the intention to hurt you. Well, there's videos out there of that sort of thing where children are still being hurt by people stepping on their heads and backs, among other shit, for the entertainment of disgusting people. And those sorts of clips were featured in the mixtape as well. One was believed to have taken place in the United States. An unidentified woman, believed to be in Texas, was seen in the video suffocating an inconsolable toddler around 2 years old by sitting on its head and pushing her foot onto its face. The video escalates with the woman forcefully constricting the child with her legs. It was shared within the community of Corpus Christi, Texas, and was also shared all over Facebook in those communities as well. Neither the woman nor the child have been identified. This took place in 2019, and the video is still widely passed around, and was even left up on Facebook, allegedly to help identify the woman in the video by an ankle tattoo. Some people speculate on these sorts of videos, and speculate that they're even part of a bigger network of videos, so to say, from these people with far more sinister ideas. The suspect in the video, for instance, is the mother of the child in it, and as I discussed in the infamous 4, her core groups, for example, usually require you to submit unique content to be granted access or trade with other predators, and the most disturbing fact about the matter, aside from the savage acts inflicted upon children, is that the children are almost always victimized by people they know. Daisy's destruction is actually a rare case in this aspect because Peter Scully essentially bought his victims for his CSAM. But most kids are actually victimized by their babysitters, their teachers, other family members, and in some cases even their own parents, and that is what speculation has pointed to with this woman. And as anybody who has been assaulted before in their life, especially as a child to their recollection, could tell you that that's true. Amber Alert has a tone that isn't like anything else, because there is no background music that I remember. There's no ambience like Snuff R73. And it appeared with Amber Alert in particular, the impact of the videos and imagery used was deemed enough to shock and awe. And it is. However, it tells me that the creation of this mixtape was done without the intention of Reddit fame. And in a way it's relieving, but at the same time it's still extremely disturbing. It was made for people who enjoy it. The final clip in Amber Alert was of a 2-year-old boy being electrocuted viciously by a stun gun by an unknown man. But it turns out there was actually at least 3 people present in the video. The trio also made other abuse videos and were tied to a company called CONDONE, a company that owns cocoa plantations and a palm sugar plant in Cambodia. The abuse video was shared all over social media, namely Facebook, and the Cambodian police eventually connected the 53-year-old CEO of CONDONE and 3 other people to the abuse and the off-camera rape of the child. Multiple employees of the CONDONE company were also arrested following the arrest of the CEO. The videos were recorded at one of the plantations, and the child was that of one of the workers that lived on the plantation as well. And while the child in the video was saved in the end, it is unknown what other material that group produced and published online, on the Darkweb, or what else they may have done. Poverty can buy you silence in countries like Cambodia and the Philippines. Often young children are sold off so the rest of the family can survive and buy food. The value of life reflects on the economic environment, and these are just the cases we know of. So there is no telling what CONDONE as a company did behind closed doors either. And with so many employees who lived impoverished, and even live on these plantations with the CEO of the company involved, it becomes one of those conspiracies of the whole company possibly being in on it. But there's no saying for sure. It's just speculation at this point. The very last thing, though, that was used in the Amber Alert mixtape was a screenshot crudely describing Daisy's destruction, like a transcription, which I discussed in the infamous 4 as well, as it is the most accurate description that can be confirmed without setting eyes on the actual CSAM. The description matches the most consistent and reputable news sources at the time's descriptions of it, as well as at least 2 admitted viewers' descriptions of the video. With its obscurity and seemingly calculated detail of disturbing content, it begs the question of who made the mixtape to begin with. I mentioned nobody knows that, right? Well, we do have an indication to a group who seems to be behind the mixtape. But this information has led to a confirmation of my suspicions that Amber Alert and Suffer Little Children were made by the same people. In fact, another sister mixtape is connected as well, known as the Lovely Savage Mix, or Lovely Savage's Mix. I have also heard that another called Scream Bitch is also connected. The mixtape was posted to a Darkweb paste bin, and then advertised on 88chan. From there, it bled its way into infamy through its leaked content on the ClearNet, after my initial coverage of the mixtape. The OP claimed and credited the collective for the creation of the mixtape. Presumably a member, or the members were the ones posting. They made trailers, promotional material. But who are they? Granted, one thing they have not done is put illegal material in the mixtapes credited to the creation. The same cannot be said about Reddit, whose copycats have literally put child exploitation material in mixtapes. While the creation of these mixtapes is extremely disturbing, is it evil? Not necessarily. The intention is to shock and horrify people, and Amber Alert does just that. It shows exactly how cruel and fucked up the world really is, and no matter how innocent a child is, they are prey to a disgusting predator or predators who live amongst us. Whether that's the collective's intention or not is of course not clear without speaking to its members. There is also the scenario where they are just sadists who cater to the most extreme ideas for gore and shock media. But it doesn't really matter though, does it? These mixtapes are deemed too much for the few gore sites that are still up and running. And while I won't go into naming domain names, just put this into perspective for a moment, and that is all you'll need for this takeaway. Gore sites are more obscure than they have been for probably about 10 years or more. Very few sites are hosted outside of the Darkweb, and those are mostly forums, and the ones on the ClearNet, those sites suffered greatly after the mixtapes were posted to one of the newer best gore domains, allegedly garnering around 30,000 views before it was removed. The surge of traffic to the sites attracted the attention from people who began uploading illegal material, and since then these sites typically have a no child or animal gore policy to help prevent this from happening. With the exception of a few sites like the YNC, which propagates a collection of rape and child gore content to its fans and paywalls the content as well. It really goes to show the real ideals behind certain websites and its users. It also shows there's a demand for depraved, gruesome, and exploitive content, and where there is a demand for that, there's people who are willing to supply this shit and cater to the more extreme ideas. And as time goes on, I've only expected to get worse. And I've been saying this for a long time now, that I'm afraid of the things we do not see, the things we don't know about, and what hasn't been recorded. And for the more experienced people who have been diving into the depths of gore and shock media for a long time, you may remember a time when certain concepts were just rumors or considered sick fantasies of sadistic individuals. Oh, if times have changed, huh? And people are braver and more savage than ever. Perhaps it's time to open your eyes a bit.